Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the first of what is hopefully 4, maybe 3 videos where I do a quarterly goal check-in. So basically, it's pretty self-explanatory, but what I want to do in these videos is just going to be like a little reading vlog where I go through and I am trying to keep myself on track with all of the reading goals that I set for myself at the beginning of the year. So that includes my list of 20 books that I want to read in 2025, but also general reading goals that I mentioned in my video. I think that was either the beginning of this year or the end of last year that I uploaded that. But my big goals is more sci-fi, dabbling into sci-fi fantasy, and my big challenge for myself is to read 2 nonfiction books per month. And then I also wanted to pick up some more, like, I still don't know what to call it, but like more intellectual, like classics and literary fiction, things that are very thought-provoking and really make you think about what you're reading. So far, I'm doing pretty good with most of my goals. The only thing, I read my 2 nonfiction books in January, and I checked out 2 nonfiction books from the library in February, and I did not get to them because I don't know, I was in a weird mood in February and I had a lot of things going on reading for other videos that these just kind of fell to the back burner. So I'm going to catch up with that. So I have 2 nonfiction books from February that I have to read and 2 for March that I have to read. So let's go through that first of all. I picked up these 2 for Black History Month that I wanted to read in February. The first one is called Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away. This is by Keith Boykin. The name was covered. This I think is just 25 different essays, arguments about racism, systemic racism, and why it's never going to go away and why we can't just ignore that it exists. Then the other one, this has been on my TBR for a while. This is called Madness, Race and Insanity in a Jim Crow Asylum. Antonia Hilton, once again the name was covered. This one, I don't really know too much about it aside from the title and the subtitle, but I've heard really good things. Like I said, it's been on my TBR for a while. So that is the first thing that I'm putting on the TBR for this reading vlog. And then the 2 nonfiction books that I originally planned to read in March, for Women's History Month, I picked up The Secret History of the Rape Kit, a true crime story by Pagan Kennedy, I think is what that says. So I guess this is about the development of the rape kit, how it came to be, how it's used. I hope it's gonna go into some of the like controversy around it, because from like reading survivors and people who have gone through this and have gotten a rape kit done, it is a very, very uncomfortable experience, especially after an assault. So I'm really looking forward to everything that this has to say. And I think that it just came out because I just recently saw it getting talked about. And then the other nonfiction book is it's got scribbles on it. This is like a self-help genre. The Mountain Is You, Transforming Self-Sabotage into Self-Mastery by Brianna Weist. This one, I know is pretty popular. I've heard of it. I've kind of had my eye on it through the years, but I'm going to be picking this one up and reading it with my sister. Hopefully it goes a lot better than the last self-help book that we tried to read, which was The Let Them Theory. But if this one sucks, then expect a rant video on that as well. So first things first, for this video, I have 4 nonfiction books that I will be reading. Next, I'm going to take a look at my 20 in 2025 TBR. I have checked off 4 books from there. So I was thinking I would pick 2 or 3 maybe to complete this month for this video. I think I know 2 of them that I want to pick for sure off of my physical TBR actually, and this lines up with another goal, which is to read more sci-fi because I've only read 1 science fiction so far this year. So let me grab the 2 that I'm thinking of. So we have Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin. This is relatively short and I've been dying to read this one. It just sounds so interesting. I think it's like AI, artificial intelligence, like robot things that people have in their homes where random people on the internet can access it and watch you, I think is the concept. I don't know. It sounds really interesting. So that's going on the TBR. And the other one, I think this is sci-fi, but I also think it's kind of maybe just like literary fiction. It is called The Memory of Animals. Okay, so it does seem like it's got some sci-fi elements. There is mentions of a pandemic and a controversial technology that allows users to revisit their memories. So I think it's going to be maybe more literary fiction or contemporary fiction, but dabbling lightly in sci-fi. It's just got a gorgeous cover. That's all I know, and I've had it on my TBR for a while. So do we think 6 books is enough, or should I add another one? You know what? No. As much as I want to read another one from my 20 and 2025 list, I think I'm going to go with this for now. This will catch me back up with my goals. It'll definitely catch me up with my nonfiction goals if I complete all 4 of these, but we will see. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get reading. So I started this on audio and I'm gonna go back and go through it physically as well, just because there's like photographs in here that I didn't realize until I like went to find where I was in the book. So I definitely want to go back and look at all the photos, but I'm about 75% of the way through this now, which in the physical book is page 247, which has just gotten to part 5. So each of the sections of this book is split up by a different timeline. So this one is 1970 to 2004. And I believe, okay, I didn't even say what this is about, but I was gonna say, I believe that the hospital that this book is about closed in 2004 or 2005. And then part 1 obviously starts at the very beginning, 1911 to 1940. So this, I'm really enjoying the audiobook because it is narrated by the author. So this is a history of the Crownsville State Hospital, which was a psychiatric hospital, and it was the first psychiatric hospital in Maryland that was opened to Black patients. And this was during the times of segregation, so the only patients there were Black patients. It's really interesting. Antonia has definitely documented like the entire history of this hospital from the very beginning. As I just showed you, part 1 starts in 1911 with the construction of the hospital. But the crazy part is, before they even had the grounds cleared and the hospital built, they were taking in Black patients from other state hospitals, and that was their first form of therapy, was to be outdoors doing manual labor to build the hospital that they are patients of, which is freaking insane. But in 1911, you know, it's just not too long after the Emancipation Proclamation and slavery was abolished, so this was just another way to have free labor and forced labor, essentially. So right off the bat, like, it was a very interesting story that we're following. It's not only the history of this hospital, but it's also an examination of psychiatric care and mental illness as well. Antonia herself, this is kind of a history of her family. There is definitely a history of mental illness within her family, and she starts off the book talking about a loved one of hers, an unidentified loved one. I'm gonna read directly from the book because I don't want to say anything wrong when talking about such a sensitive subject. They said, Antonia says, "My loved one believed that they were being hunted by a group of white supremacists. They had covered all their windows with black gaffer's tape. They had unplugged all of their electronics, convinced they were being watched through every screen and recorded through every button. My loved one no longer ran the air conditioning because they believed this organization had poisoned the air systems with a toxic gas. They were afraid to drive at night." And that was on page 3 in the introduction, and that brings up a very interesting talking point because Antonia is discussing how clearly, like, this is an extreme delusion and maybe paranoia. I don't want to like diagnose anything, I'm not a medical professional, but it's interesting because it's so difficult to tell that person that's not the case when you turn the news on and you see that there are white supremacist groups operating and there are Black people being killed for no other reason than for the color of their skin. And so how do you tell somebody who has such deep beliefs ingrained in them because of mental illness, but how do you tell them that that's not the truth when you turn around and look in the news and it is happening? So I thought that was just an interesting talking point right from the beginning. But she is just going through and telling us the entire history pretty much of this hospital, and I'm sure we all know by now what psychiatric hospitals were like back in the day, the way that patients were treated, the ridiculous things that they would get admitted for, and the very, very cruel and just horrific punishments and living conditions. Most of the time these hospitals were very, very overcrowded. That was definitely the case with Crownsville as well. I think they were like 1,000 something people over their capacity as far as patients, and then in turn they are extremely understaffed as well, so that is definitely not helping the conditions. So if you can imagine like how back in the day white patients were treated at a psychiatric hospital, now imagine being a Black patient in that same setting. And for a very, very long time in the beginning of this hospital's history, all of the staff was white, and they say that they were open to hiring Black staff members, but it was very, very clear that they were pretty against it. So the racism in that sense was leading more and more to the downfall of the hospital because they were just so stubborn and so stuck in their ways. I think you can definitely tell this is very, very well researched. I do wish that we were getting more patient accounts, but Antonia, that is the washing machine singing its little song. But Antonia has mentioned before that most of the patients that are still around that were in this hospital are very elderly and are very, very hard to get into contact with, and essentially not all, but like a good portion of the medical records and patient records have been destroyed or lost one way or the other. So it was very, very difficult for her to track down patients to interview, but she has a good bit of like former employees that have given their recounting of the conditions inside the hospital and the things that they witnessed. It's extremely horrific. It's definitely one of those books that is very hard to read at times because it makes you angry and it makes you upset, but it's also such important history to learn that is not really taught anywhere. So I'm really, really enjoying this. I probably will go ahead and finish it via audio, but like I said, I'm going to go back and look through all of the photographs. I think Antonia has done a great job with this book, researching it with what limited resources are available and having to track down all of these people and really dig into the history and different cases and things that happened there. And it's so heartbreaking, but it's so well written and very concise history of this place. And then, like I said, it's a really good blend of talking about Crownsville itself, but then also relating that back to her personal experiences within her family and the way mental illness is present there. And I think it's just, I don't know, it's just a really good book. I can tell you for sure, not even being done with it, that I'm going to give it 5 stars, and I'm going to heavily recommend this to anybody because I think it's, like I said, an important piece of history that you don't really get taught, and I think is written, executed very well. Hello, it's a few days later and I am just now sitting down to do my final update for Madness. I have finished it, like I said, a few days ago, and I did go back and I went through the photographs which were in here, which I really, really enjoy the inclusion of. I don't have too much more to say that I haven't already told you guys. I think this was extremely informative, extremely well written, extremely well researched, and a very concise history of this hospital, and also an examination of psychiatric care, how far we have come, how much further we have to go, especially when it comes to treating people of color and the way that there is so much like bias, is that the correct word? Just so many what am I trying to say? Misinformation when it comes to like people of color, especially within the medical field. This didn't go like super duper far into that like broadly, but definitely focusing on the psychiatric aspect of it. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend this to anybody that is seeking to learn more history about psychiatric hospitals, especially when it comes to segregation. That's all I have to say. Overall, it was a great book. Definitely recommend. Book number 1 completed for catching up with my goals. The next book I've been reading to complete my goals is Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin, and I'm a good bit through the book. I'm gonna sit down and finish it in just a minute after I do this update, but I figured I should say something about it before I actually finish it. So this is kind of like, I don't know, it's not like fully sci-fi, but it's like sci-fi leaning fiction. It's basically this world where there are these little eyes. They're called Kentucky Fried Chicken. We're gonna call them Kentuckys. I don't know exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it, but they're basically like these little like animals, like stuffed animals, but they're on like wheels, and they have a camera, but they are controlled by just like random people all over the world. So you can go out and buy a Kentucky, and then you have this little animal and you do like the activation process, and it pairs it with a random person around the world who has purchased an activation code in order to be like a dweller and operate the Kentucky. So you can either be somebody that is the owner, I think they're called keepers of the Kentucky, or you could be a dweller that is inside. So it's basically like entirely random. It pairs you up with a random person, and they are just like in this little thing, watching through a camera, controlling this thing. They can make like little animal noises. They can roll around, obviously, but they can't really do much. Like, they can't communicate back, but the other person can talk to them, obviously. So it's definitely a very interesting concept, and the book is just following like a few different people. We're kind of flipping it back and forth through perspectives of different people. We're following people that are dwellers, and we're following people that are keepers of the Kentucky, and just different situations. So for example, we're following like a high school aged boy that is inside of one of these Kentuckys in Norway, and then we are following like an older woman who is inside of the Kentucky of a younger woman, and she's like has kind of a parasocial, I don't know if that's the correct term that you would use here, but like a one-sided relationship, like where she very much cares like about this girl. And I guess you could say maybe it goes both ways in some cases, but it's just very interesting concept to explore. There was also a brief chapter where we had like a senior living community that bought 2 Kentuckys for their residents there, and then when the people that got assigned to the Kentuckys and they like activated it or whatever, and they realized that they were in like a senior community, they killed themselves and they like disconnected. And so basically, like when you disconnect from the Kentucky, that's it. You can only do like 1 pairing per device. So if you buy one and either the battery runs out or the person disconnects, then that's it. Like you can't use that again. You can't repair it or reactivate it. You have to go out and purchase another one. So I thought that was like really interesting. It's just different scenarios from different perspectives. So it's kind of like very loose plot. Like there's like a concept that's happening, but we're just kind of following along these people as they are experiencing this. I'm really liking it. I like the writing style. I like the like easy kind of way that the story is moving and the way that we're flipping back and forth between these perspectives, and they're all really fascinating in their own ways. The only thing that I'm not entirely sold on with this book is like how realistic it really is. Like, who would really buy one of these things? I think it's totally realistic that people would buy like the codes to be able to be a dweller and go inside of the Kentucky so that they could like go and like spy on other people and like roam around their homes and just watch people in their like private moments. Like I think that's definitely realistic. I think people would do some very bad things with that, but who would like willingly go out and buy something that is a camera, like a free roaming camera that is controlled by a random person anywhere in the world? That's the only thing that's like unrealistic to me, because like who, like logically who would do that? And I feel like the book's not really selling it that well. Like we're seeing people that have these Kentucky, but I don't understand why they have them. Like why would you buy it? Like in a way I kind of get it, they're like treating them as like pets and they're just like a cute little toy, but it's like, but you know that there's a camera in it and it's being operated by a random ass person, and you're giving away like private information. You're showing them your face. In some cases, you're showing them your body. You're showing them your home, giving away your potential address. There are people that have the Kentucky and they will hold up little notes that they're like, call me, email me, like here's my address, here's my personal information, like let's be friends. And I'm like, why would you do that? I don't understand. It's definitely interesting. So far, it's not really like as dark as I feel like it could be. Like I think there are definitely so many horrible things that could be done with this concept. Like if it was real, like people would do some absolutely horrible things with it. I'm sure we can all imagine, but we're not really like getting into that with the book. Like maybe like a little bit, not really even. And so I'm waiting to see if maybe in the last section of the book, if we start to get more dark and more disturbing and the stakes get a little bit higher, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to kind of keep the same tone that it's had, where it's just kind of light and we're just following these people and there's not really a plot or a climax or a really big conclusion or takeaway, but I'm still really, really enjoying it. So I'm going to keep reading, and I hope that it does something crazy in the last little bit. Like I hope the story's kind of like arc and they like, I don't know, get to a crazy point and then things come crashing down. But we'll see what happens. Maybe it just ends and then that's it. I kind of hope not, but we'll see. I'm officially done with Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin, and I don't really know how to feel about it. I think I'm gonna land on 3.5 stars for this. I so badly wanted it to be a 4, but I feel like it just didn't go as deep into this concept as I would have liked. I think this had a really interesting idea and a really unique idea for a book with these Kentuckys and the idea of like what can be done with them, but instead of, I feel like, going really into it, diving into it and creating a very well fleshed out like full-length novel about this idea, the author chose instead, as I mentioned, to focus on multiple people and different situations that can occur with this concept. And it was enjoyable, but it was just lacking that depth. Like I wanted it to go deeper into things, and I know, like, I just don't know how to explain it other than that. Like this just felt like a good little like introduction of this concept, a little exploration of the concept without ever really going fully into it. So it was good, it was enjoyable for what it was, but I wish that there was more to it. Like it's a book where we are flipping back and forth between different characters, so it doesn't really feel like one where you're supposed to really get to know the characters and feel very, very invested with them. It's just more you are kind of like a bystander, just like witnessing what is happening with these characters and not really ever getting that full connection and caring deeply about what happens to them. There are some points of this where things do get a little bit strange and a little bit dark. Like I did mention, I was hoping that it would go really dark and really get into the horrific things that could happen if this concept were a reality, but it just never really went there. You just see these people and you see this moment in their lives when they have this Kentucky, and then that's it. Like you're just with them during these scenarios, and then the book ends and there's really not a lot to it. So 3.5 stars because I enjoyed the writing and I enjoyed the idea and the premise of it, but overall I just wasn't super duper connected to everything, and I wish that we got a little bit more from the book. Hello there. Let's talk for a second because it's been quite a while since I last did an update for this video, and things are not quite going to plan. So, unfortunately, I can't read everything that I talked about in the intro because the first nonfiction book, The Secret History of the Rape Kit, I didn't realize that the loan that I had was a much shorter time period than it usually is from the library, and that's because it is a new release and I could not renew the book because there are so many holds on it because it is a new release, and I just didn't realize that at the time. I was like, oh, I plan to read this like within the next couple of days, not realizing that it was due within the next couple of days, so I couldn't do that. And then the other nonfiction, The Mountain Is You, that I mentioned I was reading with my sister. We like to buddy read books like that. I think both of us, just for different reasons, had kind of a busy month, and neither of us ended up picking that book up and starting it. And then once again, the due date was approaching, so I had to return it. And we will definitely read that together in the future, but it just didn't happen this month, and so that's not gonna be in this video. But I still do have Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away. I have this one checked out still for like another week, and I think I'll be able to read it before this video goes up. I don't know, it's something about like the fact that it's like different essays just in my mind makes me think that I'll be able to get through it relatively quickly. We'll see, I don't know. And then today I'm going to start, or I technically have started, this is where we're at today, using the dust jacket as a bookmark, but I started technically The Memory of Animals by Claire Fuller, which is the other book off of my physical TBR that I wanted to read. So I've only read like the first chapter and that's it. It's like 10 pages. It's definitely like piqued my interest. Like it definitely has me wanting to pick it up and read it some more. I don't know how, should I hold up the dust jacket? Like what should I do here? We'll hold up the dust jacket because it's pretty. So all I know so far is that we have this woman. There is a pandemic happening and she has signed up to go to this facility and be like a paid volunteer for this experimental medical thing. The way that they're talking about it makes it seem like it's a vaccine to whatever this pandemic is caused by, but the synopsis says that it's like a experimental thing that helps people revisit their memories. So we'll see where it goes. I am really excited. I think that I'm only 10 pages in, but I think that the way that it's written has like this, I can't pinpoint it because I haven't read too much, but there's kind of like the writing feels a certain way to me and it feels like something I will enjoy. So that's where we're at. I just wanted to talk for a minute because like I feel like I've just been, maybe I'm in a reading slump. I just don't know. It feels weird because I don't know if I've ever really been in an official reading slump. Like that's not something that I experience very often, and it's just like a weird point where I'm at right now where I find myself not wanting to read and not wanting to pick up books. I also find myself like I'm kind of in a weird YouTube slump too. Like I find myself not wanting to film. I've actually missed 2 uploads technically because I had like sit down videos that I wanted to film, and then I ended up just not feeling like it for some reason, and I'm trying to be better about that because I want to spend more time like creating things that I actually like and making videos that I enjoy filming, and spending more time on uploading like fewer videos but things that I feel better about, like quality wise, putting out into the world, if that makes sense. And there are points where sometimes it's really like sit down videos that maybe because I like think about it too much in my head, and then the day comes to film it and I'm like, oh, I just don't really want to do it. And I know that I could like force myself to sit down and like rush through this video, but it's not going to be something that I really like. So when the day came to film the 2 prior videos that I was supposed to upload, I just wasn't feeling it, and I just didn't want to do it. And I think it's better to just not do it. Like this is something I do for fun. Like, why am I going to sit here and force myself to do something that I don't really want to do? So I'm trying to give myself grace, but it's definitely weird. Like, I guess this reading slump that I'm in, it feels like right now, like, comment down below if you are also experiencing a slump, because I feel like I've seen a lot of people recently talk about just being in like a reading slump. And it's very interesting, like something is in the air. But it's weird for me because that's not normally how I am. I'm not normally I'm just having this mood where I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to read. I don't want to film. I don't want to edit. Like in the back of my head I do, but I'm like, then the time comes and that like motivation and that feeling is gone. To be completely honest, the thing that is really saving me this month is audiobooks. And so that's how I know like I still want to read and I'm still like enjoying books and enjoying stories, but it's just like, I don't know, something about like sitting down and physically reading right now is like not hitting my brain the way that I want it to. The show must go on though. I'm still planning to upload this video because I was kind of considering, I was like, do I even upload it? Because like I'm not even reading all of the books that I said I was gonna read. Like, but I am still trying to catch up on my goals. Like, that's the point of this video, is just to do it, to try to catch up on my goals. So the video is still going. Plans have changed a little bit, but I'm still going to try to read at least these 2. I would read more, but I'm also currently filming a different video that will probably be up later, a different reading vlog that was supposed to go up this month, which I don't think is going to happen anymore. I just want to finish these books and get this video up and then focus on the other ones, because that has been more of a feat than I thought it was going to be, but I'm still really excited for that video whenever it does go up. I think I've been rambling for a little too long now and I'm getting a little sidetracked, so I'm going to end this here, but I figured we could get real for a second and talk about things, and I'll let you know that this video is not going to be what it necessarily started out to be, but it's still going to be something. We're working with it. So let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, in case you couldn't tell, I did wash my hair. Not that it really matters, but just it's kind of does its own thing after I wash it, so we're just gonna ignore that. I meant to update you guys again before I ended up finishing the book, and that did not happen. It went by so quickly that I am now done with The Memory of Animals by Claire Fuller. I listened to this one mainly on audio as I was doing like cleaning the house yesterday, and then I listened to it today when I was working out, and then between that I just ended up finishing it because, like I said, it was a very quick read. So it definitely leans way more fiction and like kind of dystopian more than it is sci-fi, although there is like technically a sci-fi element. It does not read like science fiction. It's just kind of a literary fiction book. So we are following our main character. The world is experiencing a pandemic at the moment, and she signs up, like I said, to be a paid volunteer for this experimental vaccine. So she basically goes to this secure facility and they give her and a group of other volunteers the vaccine, and then they give them a small dose of this virus just to see, you know, how the vaccine works, obviously. So she's given the vaccine and then she's injected with the virus and she gets very, very ill, but things begin to go wrong while she is in this facility. The virus mutates, it gets a new strain that is pretty much like unsurvivable. So the synopsis describes it as a mysterious disease causing sensory damage, nerve loss, and in most cases death. So there was talk about like it makes certain body parts like swell up, and also one of the really common signs of it is like memory loss and just kind of disorientation and like being confused as to where you are and like what is going on. And so we honestly don't get too much about the actual pandemic. We just have our main character, she goes by Neffy, waking up in this facility and realizing that, first of all, she survived, so that means the vaccine does work and she got through this period of illness. And then she like kind of vaguely remembers all of the staff there leaving and her specific nurse saying like, I have to go, like take your medicine, like blah blah blah, and they just all kind of desert everybody there. So she wakes up to find that there are other survivors, other volunteers that are still in this facility, except they never got the virus because shit went down, like stuff started to go really bad before they got to them to administer this thing. So they have never been sick, they didn't get the vaccine or anything. So now Neffy is just kind of living with them in this place, and it's kind of like reminiscent of any sort of dystopian apocalyptic book where you just have a group of strangers that is just trying to make it in the very, very different world. But one of the other volunteers there, his name is Leon, and he has this thing that is called the Revisitor, if I remember correctly, which is basically this technology that allows you to go back to a past memory and essentially kind of like live it as if you're in VR. So you come into your body in the memory, and our main character describes it as like you are aware of where you are at the moment. Like she's in this facility laying down in bed with this technology connected to her, but she is also aware of being like her 12-year-old self in her past memory and feeling the same feelings that she felt at that time period and having the same exact thoughts, but then it kind of merges with her actual thoughts as an adult and revisiting the memory. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So that's like the one kind of like sci-fi-ish element to it. But we basically have this group of strangers trying to survive and figure out what is going on. They have not really seen too many other people, and they just don't know the state of the world. You know, they've been locked up basically in this facility, and Neffy begins to sort of become addicted to visiting her past memories because she gets to see her father who passed away. She gets to see her boyfriend, who, side note, is also her stepbrother, who she hasn't seen since before the pandemic. Like the last thing she heard from him was that he was on a flight and the flight got rerouted and they weren't letting anybody off the plane. So she just kind of has to assume that he didn't make it and he is dead. And so she kind of becomes addicted to visiting these memories and seeing these people. All the while, she also has a fixation on this octopus. So I think she worked as a marine biologist. So there was like a specific octopus at the like lab or wherever that she worked that she was very connected to, and it reminded her of an octopus that she saw as a child when she was like 12 years old and she was swimming in the ocean. So throughout the book, she is writing letters to this octopus from the lab. It just addressed Dearest H, and then she's talking about, like, the first letter says, is it possible to fall in love at 12 with an octopus? And so that's throughout the whole book, and I just kind of struggled to see how everything really fit together in this. I feel like there were a lot of elements happening and kind of all battling to be the primary focus of the story, and I think individually each of these elements is very unique and very interesting. We have her visiting her memories, then we have the whole like dystopian pandemic apocalyptic world that we're in, and then we also have like her feelings towards this octopus and like this obsession with marine life and octopi. I think that's correct, right? So individually, like, they're really interesting elements, but all together, it just didn't mesh very well. Like, this is definitely a character-driven book, as there's not really a lot going on with the plot. They are pretty much in this place, and they're just, like, getting by day to day, and that's really it. They don't ever really try to do anything, try to go outside or like make any sort of discoveries until the very, very end. So the ending almost feels like abrupt, like it comes on too quickly because you don't really get to see them try to venture out or do anything different, and then you get to see it at the very, very end, and then the story just kind of finishes. I don't know, it just didn't do anything that really connected with me. Like, I think this had a lot of potential to make really profound statements and really have a lot to say on grief and relationships and love and loss, but it just like never fully met those points for me personally. I can definitely understand the people out there that really, really love this and maybe they did get a big takeaway from it, but for me it just wasn't unlike anything that I've read before. Like, it just didn't do anything very unique for the storyline that it followed. I think the most interesting part of it was the technology that lets you go back and revisit your memories, and I wish that that was more of the focus of the story rather than the pandemic and everything else that was going on, because we didn't really get to see a lot of it, but we just got to see our main character utilizing this technology over and over and over and reliving these memories with her of people from her past and from when she was a child, and it kind of helps to develop her as a character in our minds, but it just like it wasn't really interesting. So that's why I say this is definitely character driven. If you are someone who really loves to connect with characters and you don't need a lot of heavy plot or things going on, then I think this could be something that you enjoy. It's, you know, it's a very isolated setting, being closed in this facility. There's some weirdness going on with different things, but it's not anything too crazy or too action-packed. For me, it was just okay. I really don't know what to rate it. I am kind of thinking about a 3, but that almost feels like too high of a rating because I didn't really have like enjoyment with this book. I didn't hate it. It could definitely be worse, but it's not like something I was reading and I was super invested in the plot and I was super invested in where the story was going to go, and I was sitting with, you know, the writing and it was very profound and making me think a lot and I was really connected to the characters. Like, it was none of those things for me. Honestly, like, if this was any longer than it was, I don't know if I would have finished it because nothing really happened and nothing was really holding my attention. But because it was such a quick read, I was like, well, I might as well just finish it and get through it and see what happens. Once again, disappointed by a gorgeous cover. Like, why can't you just be good on the inside too? I'm about to take a shower. I am post-workout right now, but we are on to the last book for this video. So, you know, things are looking up for me, okay? I am a good bit, I think like 70% of the way, or maybe just over 70% of the way through this. I'm on page 172, which is part 5 of the book, and I'm pretty close to finishing it because if you can see this yellow sticky note, that is where like the bibliography begins. So it's really just this small little section that I've got left to read. It is very, very good. I'm really, really enjoying it. For a nonfiction, it is very engaging to the reader. It is very informative and it is very interesting as well. There is a lot of discussion of things that I had previous knowledge of, but then so many different things that the author is talking about that I had no clue about these things, and obviously it all pertains to race, and the 25 arguments that won't go away are arguments that people make when they ask this question, why does everything have to be about race? So for example, I will show you, like, this is chapter 2. So every chapter starts with a statement. This one says, critical race theory is not indoctrinating school kids to be woke. And then we get one that is an argument and one that is an answer. So for here, this says, argument, in Florida, we are taking a stand against the state-sanctioned racism that is critical race theory. We won't allow Florida tax dollars to be spent teaching kids to hate our country or to hate each other. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, December 15th, 2021. And then in answer, we have like a rebuttal to that. So When the DeSantises of the world say this teaches us to hate America, I say no, this teaches us to see what America has been, to better understand how we can make America what we want it to be. Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, critical race theory scholar, August 12th, 2021. And then that's just kind of like an introduction into like what specific argument this section is going to be focusing on. And it's funny that I flipped open to this because this is one of the ones I wanted to talk about anyways, because I thought it was really interesting and obviously very relevant to today, with the Trump administration wanting to remove critical race theory from schools, and how just recently that became like a really big thing that people were talking about. So the author actually goes in this chapter and he talks about, he's like, people are always talking about critical race theory and how it shouldn't be taught in schools, but half of these people don't even know what it is. And he talks about his background going to Harvard Law School and how that was like the first time he ever heard of critical race theory, and that is where it started with some of the students there that wanted to examine race and how that plays into the law and the justice system within America. And that's where it started. And he was basically saying, like, back in the 90s, if you ask anybody what critical race theory is, nobody's going to know what it is unless they are in law school. And then it took one person to mention it. Tucker Carlson in 2020 mentioned it on Fox News, and then from there it has just skyrocketed and become the hit thing that everybody wants to hate on because it's ruining the country, even though prior to this nobody really knew what it was or even knows now what it was. Like, I definitely didn't know that that's where the term came from and how it started off, so I thought that was really interesting. But he is going through a lot of different things to give you guys some of the chapter names that we have here. He talks about reverse racism, white privilege, obviously talking about slavery, talking about the equation of the N-word to being called a Karen, and how white people like to say that that is comparable, even though it's not at all. He talks about police brutality, obviously the idea that all black people have to go back to Africa because if they don't like America, even though white people were the ones that forced them to come to America in the first place. He talks a lot about like myths as well, and like stereotypes of like the absent father stereotype when it comes to black families, black on black crime, which he makes a point of saying like, what even is black on black crime? Like, you don't hear people say white on white crime because that's just crime. Like, it's just crime that occurs. So this has definitely been a great read so far. Like I said, very informative, very interesting, like definitely keeping your attention, especially because it is like these short essays. It's easy to, you know, however you decide to read it, if you want to pick it up and read one essay and then put it down, it's just very easy to get through these. They don't go on longer than they need to. He gets quick to the point, makes his argument, and then moves on to the next thing. He has it broken up into 5 parts so that it's easy. And even in the introduction, he states like, this book is designed for you to read it front to back if that's how you want to, or if you want to go through the table of contents and just pick up the ones that are most beneficial to you to read. So I definitely really appreciate that. I've been reading this physically, and then I also picked up the audiobook today, and I am enjoying the audiobook as well. Obviously it is narrated by the author, and I think he has a great voice for narrating. I really enjoy with nonfiction when the audiobooks are narrated by the author, because I feel like it brings like a, not a new meaning, but like it just makes you feel more closely connected to the story that is being told. So obviously I have not finished this yet, but I would still definitely recommend it to anybody who is looking for a book that covers these topics and focuses on spreading an anti-racist message. I think this is really well done, and I'm very excited to finish it and give you guys my final thoughts, although I probably won't say much more about it because I'm pretty sure it's going to be 5 stars because it's good. I am officially done with my book. Like I said, I don't have too much more to say about it that I haven't already said, except I really enjoyed it. It's definitely getting 5 stars from me. I would highly recommend this to anybody, period, but specifically anybody that is living in America and wants to learn more about systemic racism and the way that is very present in our society and the way that the system was set up. I think this is really interesting, really informative, and of course very relevant, as I said, with the current state of our country. And it's just interesting because he wrote this, obviously this was published before Trump got re-elected, and so it just makes me so curious, like, if the author were to write this book in the present time period, like how much more could be added in the arguments that he's making and different quotes. Like, there is some stuff that he does include from Trump and things that the Trump administration did the first time around, and I'm like, and it's just so much worse this time. And I feel like you could definitely expand on like everything in this book if it were to be written in the current day, even though this didn't come out that long ago. Just how much has changed in that time period is kind of frightening. So definitely pick this up if you are somebody living in America. I think this is something that I would recommend to everybody. But that brings us to the end of the video. So yay, I completed 4 books, 4 out of the original 6, but that is still pretty good. So let me take a look at my goals real quick. Okay, we are moving to the other side of the desk because it's a little bit easier for me to get on the computer and look at the computer with the camera over here. So this is currently where my 20 books for 2025 TBR is. I checked off 2 more of those books in this video, so right now I am at 6 out of 20 completed, which is definitely on track. So at my current reading rate, I have checked off like 2 books per month so far this year, which definitely puts me on track to complete this list because that is a little bit more than what I really need to read. I think everything else is going pretty well. Also, I have read 4 science fiction books so far this year. I thought, like I told you guys, The Memory of Animals was going to be kind of a sci-fi book, and it wasn't. I classified that as literary fiction, so it didn't bring that number up too much, but I think that's a good amount for right now. As far as nonfiction, which is my big one, let me see what we're at. I have 1 memoir, 1 self-help, and 2 general nonfiction. So that brings me to 4. So I am still behind on that because, like I mentioned, I wanted to read 2 nonfiction books per month. So I need to read 2 other ones in order to be on track with that goal, but I've got time to make that up. So right now, I think things are going okay. I think this was pretty successful, all things considered. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this and if you would be interested in watching the other installments in this series. Like I said, this is definitely something that I'm going to continue to do throughout the year. I would like to continue it maybe in upcoming years as well, but you guys will just have to tell me if this is a concept that you enjoy. So with all of that being said, that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you guys next time.